Alright, dropped the kids off at school, headed over to the farm. Michael is coming down. We should be doing some pruning today, and while I was away with the family in Louisiana, the sun came out finally in Maine, and apparently this weekend while we were gone it was nice and warm, and everything that likes the sun took off. We got home and the grass was crazy high at our house, and then yesterday I went by the farm and looked, and even though we had just been, Michael and I had just cultivated, let's see, today's Wednesday, so yesterday was Tuesday, so it was a week prior to that. We were there the Tuesday before cultivating. The weeds are nuts. They still are not very prolific around the trees, is where we focused most of our cultivating efforts in row, but in between the rows of trees they're more than ankle high. I mean, they took off and probably grew 6 inches, some of these weeds, in 4 days. So I've got my flame weeder, Michael's bringing his BCS since mine's not working, and we're gonna see what we can do to get the in between the rows areas down to a manageable level, which basically means weed free. Good job.
I know. But why do you got a soft thing on their finger?
So modest.
I hurt my finger,
I know
and now
that.
they put this on to protect it.
I know that.
I thought you just asked me why I had it.
Yeah, that's the thing now.
Oh.
She'll say something and I'll answer, and she'll go, I was just kidding.
I was just kidding. You press the button again?
Yeah.
Will we stop the video?
Michael is currently tilling using his BCS and my tiller because he doesn't want to use his and possibly introduce new weed seeds into his garden. Meanwhile, there's a little section between these two rows upon which I want to use the flame weeder. This is something I've only recently convinced myself is a good idea, say within the last 5 years. The basic premise is, hit young weeds with a shot of extreme heat so the water inside boils nearly instantly, thereby rupturing the cell walls and killing the plant. It's an extremely effective weed suppression method. However, it uses fossil fuel. At least this version. I'm researching wood-burning alternatives, and I'm convinced it's possible using the same principles as a wood gasifier. But, as yet, I haven't had time or skill to build such a contraption. The argument I've made with myself is that it's better than tilling, which destroys the soil microbiology and tilth. Each time I use this tool, however, I'm reminded of a quote I believe is attributed to Ben Franklin. The problem with being a rational being is that you can rationalize anything. As you can see, you don't need to burn the plants. You just need to have the heat on any given plant for 2 to 3 seconds, assuming you're flame weeding when they're young. This is good because you want to move as quickly as possible, especially if, like here, you have a lot of dried leaves and other organic matter in the field, which can easily catch fire. I always wear shoes I don't care much about, but that protect my feet, not only from the weeder itself, but while I'm stamping out any errant flames. Also, it's a good idea to look behind you frequently to make sure nothing flared up while you weren't looking. Always be sure you know what the fire danger is, and, if it's moderate to high, wait to flame weed until it's lowered. This is a great tool, but it's nothing with which to be careless.
The way the tractor is acting, I think I need to replace the fuel filter, which I've done before on the 755, so that shouldn't be a problem, but I don't have one right now. So I'm gonna go do something else. Rather than mow, Michael and I just chatted on the phone, and he got about halfway up, pruning last year's trees. So I'm gonna go pick up where he left off. All right, these trees look really awesome. Michael was here, did a little bit more tilling. He stayed a little bit longer than me. I had to go work today, so it's the end of the day now, and came over for dinner. So I'm just out here for a few minutes. And since I can't mow, because I think, as I said, I think the tractor needs a new fuel filter, I'm gonna go see if I could find the spot where he left off pruning. But just coming up to the trees, they look so awesome. The tilling he did on the sides, and then the weeds that I fried this morning with the propane torch are just already done. So the soil wasn't disturbed in between the rows, and it's, you know, not weed free. I'm sure I missed some, but it's pretty good. So the trees look really great right now. Just this morning, this was a carpet of weeds. Oh, there's some I missed. So it was really hard, I noticed, to get up close to the hose because it's just a piece of plastic, and if I got even close to it with the flame weeder, it would start to bend. So there's definitely still more work to do. There's some more Gallensoga there, but there were just millions of Gallensoga sprouts. Yeah, anywhere where I was near the hose I didn't get, but it looks so much better. There's some that I didn't get, so I may come back again tomorrow or the next day and try to move the hose and hit these ones that I missed. But you know, flame weeding, it has its drawbacks, but it worked pretty well. And here's where Michael started tilling. Looks good. Alright, so now it's just a matter of trying to figure out where he stopped so I can pick it up from there and keep pruning. We're not going to worry too much about the tall trees at the top. We just want to get these up to height, but there's definitely some down here that are putting too much effort into the side shoots, so I'm going to get rid of those so they put all of their energy into growing taller. See if I can find where he stopped. If you've ever been hunting, if you haven't been hunting, sorry, or at least my experience was I hunted with my dad when I was a kid, and I went years before I saw a deer. And until that moment, I thought I saw deer all the time. Everything in the woods looked like a deer. Especially, it's early in the morning, I'm tired. My dad always woke up super early, and so it was no problem for him, and he'd wake me up at the crack of dawn or slightly earlier than the crack of dawn. And anyway, everything in the woods looked like a deer until the first time I actually saw a deer in the woods, and then I thought, man, all those other times you were an idiot. Nothing looks like a deer in the woods except a deer in the woods. And so I'm telling this story because I've been walking down these trees wondering if I'd be able to tell where Michael stopped. And it's quite obvious. So I should have just walked a little faster. It jumps right out at you. These trees are bushy around the bottom, and then all of a sudden they're not. And I can see fresh cuts, but also there's all the trimmings. So these trees haven't been pruned, no cuttings, and here's all the prunings. So I'll pick it up from here. He also did most of this row, I would say all of this row, of this year's trees this morning before I got here. I was dropping the kids off at school. So he's done quite a bit today. I'm gonna pick it up from here, see how far I get up to those tall trees before dinner.
Normally, you don't want to prune young trees, except in extreme cases when you need to train them into a certain shape. But with nursery trees, it's important to have airflow around the base, since they're so close together. Ours, for instance, are 10 inches apart in the row. It's also important that they don't begin to develop multiple leaders, meaning the main top shoots. Also, since we want them to get to at least 3 feet in height, which is FEDCO's minimum for purchase, we need them to put a lot of energy into growing straight up in the 18 months that they'll be here in the nursery. That said, pruning is a trade-off. They can't photosynthesize and get to that height if we cut off all the leaves. So, we look at each tree and try to make quick but accurate assessments that will allow us to reach our goals. It's a work in progress, and we're still learning. This drives me nuts. I don't know what causes this. This graft took, the tree grew. It's probably 2.5 feet tall. It's all dry and dead. I don't know what, there's no roots on it. I don't know if it's, that's not vole damage, that's just dry bark. It's just like this tree was in a desert, but it's in between two trees that did well. I don't know, we get this sometimes. One year I had this quite badly, and I don't know, the graft took. You can see the union there. This is where the graft scar would be. This is the scion, the cap that we put on it. It's really frustrating. Sometimes it's worse than others. This year there haven't been too many, luckily, but there was nothing wrong with this tree. There's no indication, to me at least, which, you know, I don't have a lot of experience with pests and whatnot, but there's nothing on this tree that tells me why this happened. So that's frustrating because I can't fix it until I know what's wrong. But anyway, back to it.